welcome back, and thanks for listening this week to another
Yeah.
fabulous episode from Analyze Scripts.
Yeah, we hear it's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's pretty
and
fetch.
That's a great. Thank you, Gretchen, for bringing that up.
You're welcome, Regina.
If you can't tell already what we're talking about, we are comparing and
Mhm.
talking in general about the two Mean Girls movies. So the first one in 2004, written by Tina Fey, amazing cast, and then
Obviously.
the one that just came out in 2024, also
musical.
based on Tina Fey's original script with new songs, which were just
Yes.
adorable.
And you know that it was on Broadway, right? You knew
Yes.
that there was like
Yep.
a Mean Girls the musical on Broadway. So I feel like it got like, wow, Tina Fey. I would love to pick her brain about like, she probably had no idea that Mean Girls was going to become like a
iconic,
iconic, and also just like her whole career now. Like it's obviously not her whole career, but it's a huge part of it. It became the Broadway show. Now it's the musical.
Yeah,
it's like in our cultural DNA.
Oh yeah,
just iconic. I loved rewatching the one from 2004, also because I love Lindsay Lohan. Like especially at that age, I still am trying to get her red hair color, like just like the original Damian said. Yeah, just so iconic.
She is. I loved seeing Lindsay Lohan at the premiere. I
Me
love
too.
her being a mom. I think she is a darling, and I really love her. And I think that's just because she was such the it girl of growing up, I
know. And then like we saw her struggle and be like tabloid fodder, like, as we were growing up. And now it is nice to see her hopefully on the other, it seems like on the other side.
Right.
Married with a new baby. I loved seeing her back. I was like, I gasped, I think. Well, first of all, we saw this together in the theater, which was like super fun. But I like gasped when she was the, what's it called? Like the announcer person for the mathletes competition. It was so perfect. I loved it.
And just I loved that role for her, like being, kind of like a nerd, super smart at math, like what adult would want to, do that. Someone who really cares about the youth and math.
Heron. Yeah, exactly. It was really smart. I have to say I didn't love like the fire crotch joke though.
Yeah.
Remember that one like really surprised me.
We both kind of looked at each other and we're like, really?
Whoa.
Yeah, I was really displeased with that, and I know that there was some like talk about someone in her family like put out a statement that they were really unhappy with that too. Yeah,
I would
just unnecessary,
and like weirdly ironic. Like this whole movie is about like girl bullying, right? And Mean Girls, and then like you use something that like she's been pretty open about feeling like really hurt by. And then you use it in the movie. I wonder though, like, did she give permission? Was it her way of like getting ownership over it?
I don't know.
Like using it now to her advantage, or was it like I just wonder, like, did she know about this? Were her feelings hurt? Like, is she okay? Like every now and then, Portia, I have this recurring dream. I think because like I loved Lindsay Lohan growing up, and she's like a year older than me, so she's probably like akin to your Taylor Swift, for me. At least like when I was that young, but every now and then, like every couple of years, I have this recurring dream, not so much anymore, but definitely like when she was struggling in the tabloids and getting arrested and stuff, I had this recurring dream where like I break through to her, like I'm her therapist. And like, I finally break through to her.
Did you have this dream before you became a psychiatrist? Like, has this been forever? Because that would be interesting if you had it like...
No, I don't think so. I think it was like in, med school residency, maybe. I remember watching her in court when I was in med school in the library. I had like my laptop was like split screen watching the live stream of her in court and then studying for a pulmonary exam.
That sounds like a great day.
I feel like it started around that time, just like wishing I could like get through to her and help her. So I have this like recurring dream that like, I save her basically.
Yeah. And then your friends, of course, and dancing in Ibiza at her club, at her beach club.
Obviously.
So where should we start? Like, do you want to go back and forth? Like, should we talk about like characters? I don't know. I feel like we're doing a lot of things today.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of things in this episode. I mean, like, I feel like which one did you like better? Let's start there.
Which one I liked better was the original one.
Me too. 100%. I feel like you can't touch it.
No.
I felt like the new one did a great job. I liked that they kept some original elements. Like I liked that a lot of the costumes were like the same or like harkened back to the original, but not too much.
Right.
I liked that they like updated it for the times, like how they have like Karen on TikTok or something.
Yeah.
You know,
TikTok Live.
Yeah. Is that a thing?
It's like Instagram Live, but like people don't like talk on it. They like do makeup and like, you know, answer comments.
I don't know because it's just like so weird to me. But anyway, I like that.
That's why you liked the original one.
Yeah. I liked that there was more diversity in the cast. I noticed when they took out certain things, like certain dialogue from the original movie. I was amazed, like watching the new one, like how much I've like memorized the original one.
Yes.
You know, like I think I've just seen it so many times. So yeah, I feel like I still though like the original better.
I mean, the cast to me, like I know all of them.
Iconic.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the new cast, I know that people who are younger than us like know them. I do know Renee Rapp, who played the new Regina George, but like I just think that Rachel McAdams,
you can't touch it.
It's insane. It's so funny. We covered, or you know, we're going to cover, I believe, The Notebook. This will be already out, or that one will be out. And like her in that versus Regina, like I feel like Regina is a separate character of her. Like Regina exists alone. Like
yes,
I don't even see really Rachel McAdams. Like that's Regina George.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
And I feel like these movies came out the same year. The Notebook and Mean Girls. Like what a year she had.
Yes.
But it really, I think both of those at the same time, like really catapulted her. Rightfully so. But yeah, there's like just no touching it.
No, Amanda Seyfried and then Gretchen, Lacey, I think
Lacey Chabert.
She's all on Hallmark. She's like the queen of, you know, not really, she's not Mariah Carey, but she's like the queen of holiday movies. And obviously Lindsay Lohan, Tina Fey.
Lizzie Kaplan, like it's just all of them. I loved that Tina Fey and Tim Meadows came back. Yes. I loved that they're like together.
Yeah, that was perfect.
That was really cute. I loved that Tim Meadows still had a hurt arm.
Yeah. Those references were so good.
So funny. You know, I loved it. I just imagine like, what do you think it must have felt like for Tina Fey to like put the little vest back on and her work slacks and like be Miss Norbury again? Like that must just be so cool.
It has to be, you know what I mean? It's just, it's such a phenomenon. And I feel like even if like Mean Girls, the original one is just iconic. And I feel like they did a good job with Mean Girls, the musical, the movie. It was silly. It was fun. And I just hope it was like that for them, you know, like, exactly. Like expectations were just good.
Yes. Like just so cool to like, you know, be these characters again. And it just must be so cool to see like a new generation of actors and actresses like portraying these iconic characters. And maybe that's why it's been such a cultural phenomenon, because like every character is so interesting and like multifaceted.
Yeah.
You know, like they have a lot of depth. And I just like love them all basically.
Yeah. I liked something that I appreciated in the newer one was seeing more of Karen's behind the scenes, like hurt feelings by Regina and like her desire to be liked so intensely. And because we didn't see that at all in the first one.
In the first one, it was just
she's
very
just like, oh, you know, touching her boob. I think it's gonna rain.
It's gonna rain. 60% chance.
But I liked that because Regina is so mean and like is so, you know, the queen bee and puts down everyone around her, and like of course that affects people. And I just I liked seeing that, even though it was a little bit, you know, it was I appreciated it. It made me think of, you know, high school and middle school.
Oh my gosh, I know. Well, so maybe we should start by analyzing Regina George. Like, what do you think's going on with her? I mean, clearly, no matter what movie you're picking, she comes from a privileged background.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like she's got the fancy car, she's got the fancy house, she's got the cool mom, you know, with the big boobs and like 6 O's in her Instagram handle, you know. I love Bussy Phillips, by the way. Like she did a really good job. I wasn't sure if anyone could touch Amy Poehler's version of the mom, but she did a really good job.
It was great. Yeah.
I loved like when you walk into new Regina George's house, like all the chill pill art.
Yes.
Like cracked me up.
Yep. And how her house was so of the times, right? It's like way more modern. It's not that like McMansion that we all grew up with if you had a nice house. And but the mom was so like dependent on Regina, right? For her personality, trying to be young. And I think that what I think is interesting about all these characters and just kind of leaving it there is like they are still teens, right? So it's like all of these, some of the behaviors are typical, some of them are a little bit more intense, but like we don't see personality,
disorders yet.
Disorders.
We wouldn't
yet.
diagnose it. Right. Exactly. We don't diagnose like a full-on personality disorder until someone is in adulthood, and then it really does have to be, pervasive set of behaviors and interpersonal conflicts and way of managing conflict that persist like all across different domains of their life. But we wouldn't diagnose Regina with like a personality disorder at this point because she's still developing. So I do think that's important, but it is like, interesting to think about like the mean girl phenomenon. And I feel like that like exists and you see it. And I feel like you're seeing it just like earlier and earlier. Like, I remember on Christmas time, I saw something on Instagram where like someone was talking about how their like 12-year-old daughter was getting bullied in school because she had a knockoff Stanley Cup and not like the original Stanley Cup. And like, first of all, sidebar, I don't know why people like Stanley Cups because I don't really like using those straws or like a reusable straw they have to clean with that little tiny brush. I feel like it's just like too much work. I'd rather use a Yeti, #Yeti. If you ever want to sponsor us, give us a call. But like why are people bullying each other over cups?
If it wasn't a Stanley Cup, you didn't have Lisa Frank, if it wasn't Lisa Frank, you didn't have,
Hello
the
Kitty.
cool Barbie one or American Girl doll. You didn't have 3, you only had 1 and it was a fake one. Like, I think it's been around forever. It changes. And I think, of course, social media and something that I think is interesting and I've talked to some friends about is like in high school for me, like you were cool if you had like Hollister, Abercrombie, stuff like that. Yes. And it's funny how where those brands have gone. Like if you ever watched the documentary on Abercrombie and Fitch,
God,
it's like
the documentary where they had to explain what a mall is.
Yeah. Like,
oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah. So that's a good thing to watch. But now it's like we all can see, like I can watch someone do their makeup in Idaho, California, Miami, all online where it's like, you had YouTube and there was like Tumblr and stuff like that, but it didn't make me want to buy brands that like weren't and local.
Like, since I'm 4 years older than you, right? I didn't have YouTube. Like that wasn't a thing yet. We had MySpace. Like that's where I'm landing at the time. Like Facebook, you had to have a college email address to get. That changed when I was in college, but like that's the time I'm coming from, But yeah, it's so like social media just terrifies me for like children.
And it's been, I think what's funny is like, you can really see that in these 2 movies where it's like Mean Girls have existed forever, but we see different ways that people, express themselves in a positive way, express themselves in a negative way, or influence both negatively and positively with social media and seeing, Gretchen like live streaming on TikTok doing her makeup like is something that is now new, but like, and again, great. Maybe she becomes some type of, good for her with the confidence, like, thinking of the good ways, but it's also she's like being exposed to people from all over the country who might be saying inappropriate things online. Like it's just, that's what I think is new.
It was interesting. Reach. To see the film like tackle that or tackle like how bullying can be, it goes beyond like just the physical burn book, right? Like it could extend like even greater. I did think that was really interesting. But so what do you think is going on with Regina? Like, why is she so mean? Somewhere in there I wrote down someone said like anger is her love language. And I thought that was hilarious and true. And ironically, we also recorded an episode about beef today, all about anger. And like a lot of what we talked about in terms of like the DBT skills and emotion regulation, like Regina George would benefit from.
Yeah.
Like she might need an IEP, for, just for that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there has to be some like wound.
Yes.
And sometimes having a core wound extends it through adulthood and can become something called narcissism. And other times, we like grow and we learn more empathy and we have more understanding of others through these formative experiences in high school and stuff like that.
And it does seem like that is what happens with Regina, because at the end of both movies, we see her like joining lacrosse, like finding a healthy outlet, changing her behavior, right? So it speaks to, again, these are like teenagers developing. But I kept wondering, like, what is the core wound? Like, do you think she feels unseen for who she truly is by her mom, that her mom wants her to be this like Barbie doll? Because she's like pretty, she's blonde, she's rich, she's a popular girl. Like I think anyone looking at her from the surface would be like, what's the problem here?
Right.
Is it just she like drunk on power? Like, What's the problem here? What's the
maybe
wound?
some I'm just thinking of like pressure. Like we don't see dad, so like, and but mom's like not working, so I'm assuming that someone's making an income,
either.
right? So like, and maybe mom's like independently wealthy, but I'm making an assumption.
No, I bet he's in finance.
Yeah, and not home a lot. And then mom is this like Barbie doll wife,
trophy wife,
who is
like living through her.
Right. And I feel like that immense pressure to fit the family mold of being like perfect and being popular, like she can't ever lose that. And so she's holding on to it so tight. So she will do whatever it takes to keep that status and keep those people around. And I think, I mean, that's where it has got to start, like with just feeling like I can't not be popular. I can't not be into clothes. I can't not be special in this way, or else my parents won't love me. Like, is that the message?
Probably, because you also like sense the tension with her mom in both films, right?
Oh,
that
yeah.
She's always, and it is like, of course, teenagers like are like, ah, mom, you're like, that's normal, but it has this like flavor to it where the mom is like really like living through her. Like I always think about like Kris Jenner in that early Kardashians episode, like, you're doing great, sweetie, you know, that like the mom is like really like living through her, and she's got to sense that. And I would imagine at her age be like wanting to pull away and find out like her true self or true identity. And like, what if she like is jealous of Janis for getting to do art, and or what if she wants to be sporty?
Yeah.
What if she,
wanting to be, or maybe she's like gay or bi, but she can't express that.
Right. Her sexual identity, her gender identity, who knows, right? I don't think anyone and her family is actually interested. They've sort of like told her who she is. And maybe that's where the rage comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. I Regina George is just like,
iconic.
I like love to hate her. So
what would you do with her? Yeah. Like what would you do with her if she was referred to you after all of the stuff with the burn book? Right? Like I could see how she might, or after she got hit by a bus. Like what kind of work would you do with her? First of all, do you think she'd come? How do you think she'd show up on your couch? What would you do, Portia, since you have so much experience with teens?
I think she would come with mom, because like it would be like the thing that they need to do. They're either being told to do it, or like mom thinks it's cool. Especially now in this movie, it's like cool to have a therapist. Yeah, I think. And so them coming, I think I'd immediately be like seeing mom, like the dynamic, and just being like, yikes, okay, we need to get mom to leave, because I know now this is all fake.
I was going to say that you would like have to like really make her wait in the waiting room and not like intrude and be part of the appointment and like put on a show.
So really trying to also, I think it would take a long time to build trust with Regina, because I think she's used to people using her. I think she's used to people not like maybe really wanting to know who she really is. So I think I'd have to make really big boundaries super clear with mom, and like, I'm your therapist. I'm not the family therapist. I'm not mom's therapist. I work for you. Like, and then just over time, like a lot of validating at first, like, oh wow, like that must have been really hard for you, even if because I'm only going off what they say. So even if I think it doesn't really sound accurate, like I'm still, wow, like, so that must have been really hard. But well, what do you think they might have thought, like when they or what do you think of this? And just those gentle little questions while I'm validating makes people just want to be heard, especially teens. You can't just come at them with like, you got to use this skill, or you have to start cleaning your room. They're like, no.
Right. And I think too, like I could imagine her being really quiet at first, kind of just sitting there, being like, this is stupid, or maybe coming late or leaving early. But I feel like she'd keep coming.
Yeah.
Especially if you could develop that bond with her, that alliance and that trust, and she could start to just open up and like explore like her real interests.
Yeah.
And what's it like if, other people want you to be this way, but that's not really who you want to be.
She might be pretty combative. Like she might be a little like rude even to me at first,
probably,
which I can take.
She might like insult your shoes or something.
Yes. Or just like
think something's lame, like roll their eyes,
Yeah.
I could see that. And I feel like it's important to like make space for that and show that you can tolerate it without like reacting back.
Which is so interesting, because they oftentimes, if they're in a family system that is not working well, like I'm assuming Regina's isn't, it's like she is used to a reaction, or even with peers, like you're used to peers reacting. And so just modeling like, oh, so you don't like my shoes? Like, okay, what kind of shoes do you like?
Or even modeling like, well, I like them.
Yeah.
Like showing like it's okay if I like something and other people don't, because she's maybe trying to work on that.
Yep.
Like just figuring out like, what is she like, even if other people don't like it. And I could see her doing that thing that, you know, teenagers, even sometimes adults do, where they're trying to like provoke a reaction from you, where they like do something and they kind of like look to see like what's your reaction, you know?
Sometimes that's hard to not laugh at. And I don't,
know.
but like it's just so like really like and I have the empathy and I won't, but it's just like teens are silly and that's why I like working with them. But
it reminds me of like my son when he was little, like 18 months, 2 years old, going through the terrible twos, having his tantrums. He would like, you know, want to throw himself on the floor and flail, but he would look at me to make sure I was watching and then like gently lower himself to the ground and then start flailing and keep looking at me to make sure I was watching. And it's just like that, like that's people still do that even in adulthood sometimes.
Oh yeah.
I could see her being provocative, acting out and stuff like that, but I think there's a lot of hope for her. And I think we see that, you know, as she progresses in the movie. And again, it's like she has natural leadership style. Some may have called her like bossy as a child. I don't really like that word, but if you can hone it in the right direction, that could be a real strength.
And that is what I think is so powerful about trying to reframe, rework messages that teens have received and also working with their parents of like, wow, so, you know, your daughter has ADHD or she's really, you know, she doesn't follow the rules well, or she's really, you're saying manipulative. Like like maybe, but she's also like really creative and like always gets her needs met, like, which a lot of other people don't have. So it's like, yes, there's like parts of this that don't work for your family system, but let's also acknowledge that this in the real world out there, like, is actually really powerful and like a strength. And how can we like foster it as a strength and not as something that we're like kind of like, I don't want to beat it, but like tend to try to beat things out of teens, like, you know,
especially girls.
Yeah.
You know, if they're too loud or they're too bossy or they're too opinionated, you know. So if she can like direct that leadership style somewhere helpful, like the captain of the lacrosse team. Awesome. I bet she'd be a great captain.
Yeah, I agree. I think she has hope. I think once she got comfortable with someone, I think she would be a great candidate for therapy. And I think she'd get a lot out of it.
I think she would too. Like, especially like starting with maybe some kind of DBT like stuff or like the mentalization that you were talking about, like working on getting her to imagine what the other person is thinking or feeling. Like that's a skill that comes with time. That's how you develop empathy. And then working deeper about like, where is this anger coming from, and kind of processing it and developing boundaries with her mom.
And also really acknowledging that like mom might not change. And so like, you know, right now when we're living at home, like how do we manage that? And knowing, you know, and they're all like, I think seemingly junior, senior year. Right?
It seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you know, we're ideally for them, at least they seem to be privileged enough to go to college that like we're getting out of the house soon. And then we can, you know, maybe have a better relationship with our parents with space.
With some distance. Yeah, exactly. So Gretchen Wieners. Oh my God. I love
even
her.
The name is just like awesome.
And her father invented toaster strudel, which like, you know, she always reminds us of. So again, she's privileged and rich and pretty. Very codependent though, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
What do you think's going on with her?
I think she probably gets a lot of her identity through like people around her. So
like her dad, who invented toaster strudel.
Exactly. She is basically a toaster strudel, you know, crunchy on the outside, warm in the inside.
Exactly.
I think that she is probably just one of those people in high school who's really influenced by people she's around. Like, I think if she was in another group, she'd probably like adopt, you know,
and we see that
kind
at
of
the end of we see that at the end of the first movie. Remember, she joins like a different clique and totally like adopts their language and appearance and everything.
Yeah.
She's like
just trying to fit in, which is obviously like a theme of the movie. But I feel like with Gretchen, she is always trying to be cool and like say fetch and make things happen. And again, that's just like a normal part that we all see them kind of do. But I think her, to me, stands out with just like trying to.
I think she struggles more with figuring out who is Gretchen authentically compared to like hitching on to a shiny fancy person and getting her sense of self and her identity and self-worth from them, whether it's Regina, whether it's that guy that she keeps trying to hook up with, who, remember, like,
isn't he in college or something?
I forget. He like cheated on her at the party with Taylor or whatever.
Yes.
But she always goes back to that person, right? Because she doesn't have like that sense of like inner self-worth to be like, I'm not going to tolerate being treated like that either by that guy or by Regina. She keeps like going, she's like a moth to the flame, going back for more. And I wonder if it's just because she hasn't developed like her sense of identity quite yet. Whereas we see all the other characters like also trying to figure themselves out. But like Janis, for example, has like a really strong sense of identity.
Yep.
It seems like Damian has a strong sense of identity. Regina even has a, maybe less strong, but stronger than Gretchen's sense of identity.
I think Karen does, like in her own self.
I feel like Karen feels like pretty securely attached to me, or like a pretty secure sense of herself.
Yeah.
She's a little kooky.
Yeah.
She might be on like the schizotypal side, but she's like cool with herself.
Yeah. Gretchen, I think my concern as either like a parent who's concerned or as a mental health professional would be trying to, of course, like you just said, make her try to have more confidence, secure self, and a secure base, because I would worry that she would get like easily influenced or taken advantage of by like,
100%.
a narcissist or someone who's going to kind of see that they can get a lot from her,
manipulate her.
And I would just be working on like, what are your values? Like, that's always a good place to start. Like, what do you care about? And even if it's something that starts superficial, it often ends somewhere that's not. So like, oh, I care about being liked. It's like, yeah, like we all do. Okay.
Why?
So like, it's important to have people around us. So what kinds of people do we want around us? Like what kind of people make us feel good? How can we try to foster that? Like you can keep it going until it gets to a helpful place. Or I care about, clothing. Great. So like, how can we make sure that we have access to cool clothing? That means maybe we take a fashion class that we work hard in, or maybe we have to get good at talking to others and putting ourselves out there. It's like you can work on skills even when the desire is like
surface level.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I totally agree. I think she is at risk for being taken advantage of or ending up in like an emotionally abusive relationship. I mean, she's in those already, like with Regina and with the guy. So I'd really want to work on like really like validating and building up her self-esteem so that she started to be able to feel that on her own.
Yes.
And that she didn't always need external reinforcements to feel that good. Definitely would be what I'd work on.
Yeah. I don't know where to go with Karen.
I don't know if Karen needs any work. I think just like talking about boundaries, about
safety,
like the cousins and the second cousins. Yeah. Stuff like that. Like pretty basic stuff. But I think Karen is like, okay.
Yeah.
Funny enough, right? Like,
yeah.
Again, she's like maybe on the schizotypal side, like a little kooky, a little eccentric, but like she's functioning okay. She, again, it's kind of like vulnerable to being manipulated, like by Regina and everything. But I think
seems to phase her less than it does Gretchen. She's just like along for the ride. She's not like taking these. She's not like getting hurt as much. It seems like
it doesn't knock her down the same way it does with Gretchen. Which again, I think like if Gretchen and Regina were like 40 years old and still had these dynamics, we might be talking about it more from like a narcissistic viewpoint. But they're still developing, right? Or things like that. So what about Cady Heron, the protagonist?
So I relate to her so much because I moved from a really, really, really tiny private school to public school in 8th grade. And that's like kind of when the movie came out. And I just remember like it feeling like I was like with a bunch of wild animals. Like literally probably went from, and these are all relatively small schools in terms of like the US, but like I had like 8 kids in my class and I had like almost 200.
Wow.
And people were like, having boyfriends and girlfriends and people were asking me out. And I was liked by this boy who, was a good guy. And I was afraid to date him because I thought that meant that you had to have sex.
Oh no.
And so I turned him down and all of these girls at school started an I Hate Portia club, like my first month of public school.
Oh my God.
And it was so terrible.
Why would they hate you for turning him down?
Because I hurt him. Because I hurt him. That was why.
That's so mean.
Isn't it? It was so mean.
Kids are so mean.
Yeah.
Kids are so mean. I had something not similar, but like in I think it was also 8th grade. Like 8th grade, 9th grade are really hard years. So if you're listening, like those are really hard years. But like in 8th grade, I ran for student council secretary, and my maiden name was Weed, Weed. Yes, like the drug. Can you imagine if I'd become Dr. Weed, the psychiatrist? Like, get out of here. But so for like my campaign, my mom, she was a teacher, had this like button making machine. And so we made these rainbow colored buttons that said, "We heart weed," and like, I didn't really think of it. Like, I wasn't on my mind that was like a drug. I don't think my mom did either, because she's kind of naive in that way. But like, so we made all these buttons. I was passing them out, and like, they were like really hot. Okay.
I'm sure they were.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm so popular. And I didn't get it. And then someone explained it to me, and I was like, oh, and then they got confiscated. The school confiscated them because it was like promoting paraphernalia. My mom got so mad. She was like, "It's our name. How dare you? We worked so hard on those buttons." But then once they got confiscated, then they were really hot. Like, if you could find, there was like a black market for these buttons. I'm not kidding. Right. So I felt like cool for the first time ever. Like, I have never been the cool girl. I've always been like taller. I had braces for a really long time. I feel like I've just always been awkward. And like, I just don't feel like I've ever really grown out of it. Like, I still like, I'm just always going to be living in an awkward phase, and that's okay, whatever. But I was like, oh my God. And then I won. And so that was like really cool, starting freshman year in student council with some of the other cool kids. It was like a really cool experience. So then, of course, I ran again freshman year, and I was like, okay, how do I top last year's campaigning? Yeah, I can't do that again. So I had this idea, I was a dancer just like you were. I was like, I'm going to make all these posters where I'm in like these dance poses and say, "Don't get bent out of shape. Like, vote for me again," And like, I didn't think anything of it, because like you're just naive and like innocent. Right. Yeah. Like, so I'm doing like, kicks and splits and like all these things. I'm like, don't get it bent out of shape. Right. Okay. I'm like, how old are you in 9th grade? 14, 15? Like, I'm young. And then put them all up. And then all these older boys drew penises on them.
I knew you were going to say that. I was like waiting for the penis word to come.
Yep. Yes. Like in my private area. Okay. And I was so embarrassed and devastated. I went home from school early. I took them all down. I think I like withdrew from the race. And I feel like the boys never got in trouble. Like, I never heard about the school like really taking action. But it, like, stuff like that like sticks with you, and it's like,
and it feels awful. Like a violation. Like,
it does. Yeah.
Like, especially that with like the pictures, like people, drawing things, like it just feels like it feels icky. More than just, like, oh, I got my feelings hurt. Like, it feels like you were touched almost. Like, it just,
yeah, right. So it's just like, God, kids are mean.
The kids are mean. And I remember going to college and talking to one of my now, longtime friends, and she went to a school nearby, and there was like only 70 kids in her class. And we were, we would talk about high school or whatever. And like, I've got to say, from my perception, I feel like people were really mean at my school. Like, I'm sure I was mean to people. Right. I apologize. Like, I've grown, but like, people were mean and ruthless and would bully and say things and do wild stuff. And then this other girl was like, yeah, we were all like friends. Like, everyone got along. Like, everyone was friends with everyone. And I was like, what is that like?
What's that like?
How does that happen? But I felt like our school felt like Mean Girls. There were tables, with, you could look out and see, oh, these people like are this, these people are this, lots of cliques.
Yeah.
I survived.
I feel like my school had some cliques. I was never part of like one clique.
Me neither.
I feel like I had a couple friends here, a couple friends there. Never with the cool kids. Okay, like never. But yeah, a couple friends here, a couple friends there. And in some ways that was like nice, but then in other ways you kind of felt adrift.
Yes.
And I feel like in high school, like my core friends were my dance friends.
Yeah.
Shout out JCDs, but still, I was like so grateful I had my dance friends. And also, I think looking back, it was really nice that was outside of school.
It was very grounding and like made you feel like the world was bigger than like if something happened at school, it wasn't like my life's over. Yep.
Right. But now with like social media, do you think the kids can escape it? Because I don't think it's
not like as much at all.
Like if what happened to me with the freaking penis posters, like someone would have taken pictures, put it on Instagram, laughed about it, put it on TikTok, like it probably went viral or something, right? Like that's like the risk. That's awful.
Yeah. So I would assume, and I'm, Cady Heron is like naive. Like she's coming into school. She like was homeschooled. She like lived in
a different
Africa,
country.
like was one with the earth, like really like saw how like the world worked in a totally different way.
Right.
And then coming to this school, it's very typical-ish, school and having to navigate like people being fake, right? Like, so you think you're pretty? Like I'm sure she had never ever interacted with someone like Regina George, who like,
and it's that like almost like double speak or something where like I feel this sometimes in like academia where like people are saying things but they actually mean something different and you have to like learn the underlying like lingo or something, and it's like very confusing and I don't like it. But it's like she was like, what? I'm so confused.
Right.
Like like picking up on those social cues that are unsaid.
And then the body. So we were kind of looking at each other in the movie theater when they were, all talking about in the mirror. And this happened in the first movie too, which I thought they did a great job of. They're all like tearing themselves apart, all like, oh, well, I hate this about me. I hate that about me. And they're all like, look to Cady to be like, okay, like, are you going to say something? And she like, I
doesn't know what to
hate
say.
Everything about me. Like, they're like, oh, you're so
She's
funny.
like, doesn't know.
But that's so weird. Like that's not like human behavior at our core. That like doesn't keep us alive. That's something that we've like invented, and it's just sick, and we can't seem to get rid of it.
Yeah, I know. Even though like with the musical version, I was glad that they had different body types. Even like Regina George wasn't like the stick thin Barbie doll, which I appreciated. But yeah, it's just really interesting. I'm really sad. I think one place where the musical messed up when Damian sang Beautiful by Christina Aguilera in the original movie, it was iconic. And like, I really wish he had sung like an Olivia Rodrigo song or even Taylor Swift. Like that for me is my biggest criticism.
What did he sing?
Some like opera song.
Yes.
Or something. Like I was just like, oh no, we could have done like a lot better.
Yeah, I agree.
But Damian's like one of my favorite characters of all time though. And I really did like Janis, but also is Janis that different from Regina? Because she like totally manipulated Cady.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's a great comparison where it's like we have these two different groups of people. They're both kind of leaders. They both value different things. They both want to protect themselves in different ways, and
they
have
both
their own agenda.
Yep. Yeah, they used to be friends, and then there was a rift, and they just use. I mean, Janis really uses Cady.
Yeah.
Regina's not really using her in the same way. Like she's being mean to her and like she's like one of her minions. But Janis is like brings Cady in as like a friend when she doesn't have any friends, and then really like manipulates her.
And then gets mad at Cady for becoming who she is. Like she then is like furious.
But like you like started this cycle. I don't know. What do you think is going on with Janis?
I think she has a lot of like insecurity. I think she feels still hurt by past things. I think that she has to put on kind of I think she has to put on this like facade of being more tough and like not emotionally impacted by things. I think she is deeply, same with Regina.
Sensitive. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I think her and Damian have a good relationship. I think they're good for each other, but it's almost like Janis has this like axe to grind, and she's like constantly kind of searching for a way to get back at people. And like, if something sad happens, sure, you can have those feelings, but like, it's also not healthy to carry that forever.
Hold on to it forever. Yeah, like you got to let go of it at some point. Yeah.
And sometimes we don't do that until we get out of high school, like, and I get it. Like maybe she moves on her way and just needs space. Like, but other times, like those childhood, adolescent wounds, like do shape us.
Yeah, for sure. It's very, very formative years. Very formative years. So how do you think she would present for therapy if she came?
I think she would come.
I think she would like it.
I think she would like it. I think she would like it even in like the first movie. I think like because she's like a little bit like alternative and like would be like down for
to
it.
Art therapy or equine therapy with horses.
Totally. That is hitting the nail spot on. I think you would, in a similar way with Regina, like I think she would be more into it, but I think they're still both kind of protective and a little bit defensive of like, well, who are you? Are you going to hurt me? Are you going to tell my parents something? That I think it would take a little bit to get through, which again makes them similar.
Right. Yeah, I know. I think they're actually more similar than not. And again, like at that age, you're still seeing things really black and white, like one's good, one's bad.
Yep.
But actually, all of the characters, I was just going to say, maybe except for Karen, have good and bad in them. And they're all sort of coming to terms with that and like that's okay.
Yeah. And then Cady starts to figure out how the world works in this high school. And right, she like starts getting bad grades on tests so that Aaron can help her, which we were laughing about again at the theater because we were like, you know, watching the 2004 movie, like Aaron was so hot.
Like, was so hot.
Oh my gosh,
but this
he was
version
amazing.
was like fine.
He's like a child. It was like weird. I was like,
well, maybe that's because like we're old now.
Yeah, and so we're appropriate.
Like a
you know,
to us. Yeah, that's true.
We're like, he's not attractive.
He's not that because hot, he's like, but then it's like, well, yeah, that's because you're like almost middle aged. So you know, good.
And we're appropriate here on Analyzed Scripts. So But yeah, don't dumb yourself down for anyone. Again, that's a part of that secure self, which again is so common in teenhood. Like everyone's trying to be liked and figure out who you are. That's how we learn things. And I think people, you know, do change parts of themselves to be liked. Hopefully we grow out of that.
You know who doesn't? Kevin G.
Oh.
Kevin Poor.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Right, Kevin. Oh, Kevin G, right? Yeah. He's him and Karen, they're the healthiest.
They are so I don't know if it's almost, and this is, I'm not using this word really, really correctly, but they almost feel a little like delusional. Like they're just like out there. They're like, they just have this sense of the world and they're safe.
Yeah, exactly. But they're like confident. Like I want, you know, I hope my kids are like confident like that. You know, even if like they go through an awkward phase, which they will, I want them to like really like lean in. Like lean into it. Like just like try it out. Try out these different identities. See what fits. Like go for it. But like he's like knows who he is. He knows he's a mathlete and he's like proud.
And you know what? He's going to do great in life because he's going to invent something or be,
he's going to be an engineer or like something with math, make a rocket or something.
Yep.
This movie did make me miss math.
Wow. Good for you. I don't feel the same way.
I don't know. Sometimes like, you know how we talk about like every now and then I feel like when our jobs are just like really hard and like vague and gray and you're sitting with a lot of like emotional distress with your patients, like every now and then I have this fantasy of like, what if I was an accountant and all I had to do was like taxes?
Yeah.
Or like, you know, balance numbers. I think that's like calculus is like that I always really liked calculus. And there's always like an answer and you just have to get to the answer and then you get the answer, you know? I wonder if anyone ever just does like math as a coping skill.
Let's do a little experiment and ask. And next time I have a patient who's dysregulating, I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to give you this worksheet and I'm going to have you finish it. And
here's
maybe
your
it'll
TI-89.
work. Yeah. Oh gosh. That's more stressful for me. No, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe our listeners could chime in. Like, do you guys miss doing math? Did you like calculus? Do you remember the quadratic formula? Like, I kind of miss math, but I am a full nerd. I get that.
I would like to be, sometimes I dream about being like a librarian, but not even a librarian who is like front facing. I just want to like put the books back. Like I want to get new books in. Exactly. I want to be in the basement. I want to like organize them. I just don't want to talk to any. I want to, maybe if, you know, if no one's looking, I might read a little bit. Like that's just what I want to do.
I think exactly. Both of our fantasies involve no other humans.
Yep.
Like sometimes you just want a job where you're like doing math or reading a book. But just to clarify, I don't actually want to do that.
Yeah.
I love being a therapist. I love working with all my patients. I love it so much. Sometimes though, you know, your job gets hard. And I bet other people, maybe other accountants, wish they interacted with people more, maybe.
And sometimes I think with especially mental health and medicine, I would imagine too, it's like a lot of the things that make me feel burned out or stressed don't have anything to do with my patient sessions.
It's like the system.
Yeah, it's the system. It's trying to find a referral. It's trying to do something with an insurance, or it's trying to do something in my EMR. Like it's like
trying to find like what pharmacy has a stimulant for my patient with ADHD. Yeah.
That's the stuff that I think, makes me want to be a librarian. But the people are great.
Yeah. And we don't really, so don't worry.
Yeah. We're not going anywhere.
Nope. All right. Anything else we want to touch on before we wrap up?
I don't think so. It's a great teen movie. I think, obviously take it all with a grain of salt. There's some things that, didn't age well, like literally every movie from the early, 2000s and 90s.
Yeah.
But I just think it demonstrates teenhood at its worst and best. And
I think everyone can connect with it in some way. And it was just really fun.
Yeah.
I really had a good time seeing the musical. So go see it if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
All right. And follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and you can watch this episode on YouTube at Analyze Scripts Podcast. Please like, rate, review, and subscribe. We are growing steadily every day, which is so exciting. If you're listening and you haven't clicked that subscribe yet, please do. And let us know what you'd like us to cover next.
Yeah, we love to hear from you. And we hope that the start of the year is going well for all of our listeners. And we're so thankful for you. And we'll catch you next Monday.
All right. Bye.
Bye.